On Tuesday, March 16, 2010, Mr. Anthony Stonecipher was led to believe that Matt Crecilius and undercover ATF agent John Estrada were interested in purchasing a .40 caliber high-point pistol that Mr. Stonecipher was selling for his wife. Mr. Stonecipher was not aware that John Estrada was serving in an undercover capacity. During this meeting, the undercover agent expressed interest in purchasing illegal firearms as well as parts and technology used to illegally modify existing weapons.
And they offered one more time, stating that they would, really pay me well for any weapons I could give them in full auto format. And I flat out told them, not interested, you couldn't pay me enough, I have too much to lose. And I know I told them I had too much to lose.
During the initial encounter at Mr. Stonecipher's home, he unknowingly sold the undercover ATF agent the .40 caliber high-point pistol and high-velocity shooting practice targets. These targets can often be purchased less expensively at most hunting and sporting goods stores.
If I had to say what Matt was interested in when he contacted me to come over to my house, with hindsight being 2020, I can see his actions were simply just to get his quote-unquote uncles into my residence under the pretense of buying cigars and a firearm.
Mr. Stonecipher was surprised to be contacted once again by the agents after not hearing from them for several weeks.
But I received a text message out of the blue asking me if I had any more guns for sale, and I told him no, I've sold all the guns that I was planning on selling. Wasn't sure who it was, so I asked. He said, oh, this is so-and-so. I can't remember if he used his real name or not. We bought the .40 high-point pistol from you.
On May 18, 2010, Mr. Stonecipher was unaware that Carlos Valles and John Estrada were serving in an undercover capacity for the ATF when he invited the men into his home to purchase another .40 caliber high-point pistol and additional high-velocity shooting practice targets.
And they arranged to pick it up on the 18th. 18th rolls around. I met them here at the house at about 4 o'clock, and I took them back to the safe, pulled out the carbine, showed it to them, grabbed the box of extra parts I had for it, screws, sling, scope, rail, and they weren't interested in any of the spare parts, which I thought was weird, but hey, if they're only interested in the gun, I can sell the other stuff online.
Between the war on terror and the militarization of the police, Americans are facing increasing government intrusions in their daily lives. With the passage of sweeping laws such as the Patriot Act, many find themselves questioning whether we are really living under Orwell's Big Brother government. Many of our nation's leading newspapers are littered with reports of increased government surveillance and invasions of privacy. Police forces around the country have become more militaristic and abusive towards average citizens. From reaching into our glove compartments in a random search to scanning our bodies at airports, the government is out to acquire a variety of information about all of us. Today, the insider-exclusive investigative news team visits with Albuquerque Civil Rights Lawyer Derek Garcia, founder of the Law Office of Derek Garcia, in a new network TV special, Know Your Rights, Illegal Search and Seizure, Anthony Stonecipher's story. To understand how the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects citizens and criminal suspects from unreasonable searches of their property and persons and prohibits police officers from making unlawful arrests. These limits are the bedrock of search and seizure law. Derek explains in The Quest for Justice in Anthony's case key issues and answers that many of us have, like what is the Fourth Amendment and what does it mean to you? What happens when a search violates the Fourth Amendment? What is a search warrant? What constitutes a valid search warrant? What powers do police get when they have a search warrant? Where can police search and what can they seize under a warrant? What recourse do you have if a search was conducted unlawfully? As the videotape beating of motorist Rodney King in Los Angeles and the murder of Oscar Grant in Oakland have illustrated, police officers sometimes go too far, violating the rights of citizens. When this happens, the victim of the misconduct may have recourse through federal and state laws. A primary purpose of the nation's civil rights laws is to protect citizens from abuses by government, including police misconduct. Civil rights laws allow compensatory and punitive damages as incentives for injured parties to enforce their rights. A statute known as Section 1983 is the primary civil rights law victims of police misconduct rely upon. This law was originally passed as part of the Civil Rights Act of 1871, which was intended to curb oppressive conduct by government and private individuals participating in vigilante groups such as the Ku Klux Klan. It is now called Section 1983 because that is where the law has been published within Title 42 of the United States Code. Section 1983 makes it unlawful for anyone acting under the authority of law to deprive another person of his or her rights under the Constitution or federal law. The most common claims brought against police officers are false arrest or false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, and use of excessive or unreasonable force. Derek has often said the problem of police brutality is much more widespread than most Americans are willing to admit. Our nation practices a selective blindness. In this great and strong nation, we have all become unwitting accomplices to the continuation of the conflict. Derek has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best civil rights trial lawyers in Albuquerque and across the nation. He has seen many innocent and hardworking people become victims of police brutality. He understands that police brutality is one of the most serious, enduring, and divisive human rights violations in the United States. The problem is not just in New Mexico, but nationwide, and its nature is institutionalized. And because of that, he is driven to fight for people who have been harmed by the willful or negligent actions of others. He learned a long time ago that if a man hasn't discovered something he will die for, he isn't fit to live. His goals, not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure all Americans have the right to a fair trial, honest cops, impartial prosecutors, and fair judges with no agendas. Because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And justice and power must be brought together so that whatever is just may be powerful, and whatever is powerful may be just. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Derek Garcia to the show. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Tell our audience a little bit about your practice of law.
I mainly devote my practice of law to plaintiff's civil rights law, and that is enforcing the Constitution of the United States in court and contesting unlawful searches and seizures.
We're here today to discuss a case of Anthony Stonecipher.
Right.
Tell our audience a little bit about who Anthony is and the case.
Mr. Stonecipher, who I've come to know very well over the past few years, he's a disabled veteran. He, on May 18 of 2010, was basically residing peacefully in his own home with his wife, and he has been the victim of a long undercover investigation by the ATF.
He didn't know about this, though?
No. It was basically an undercover operation.
Because he had some undercover ATF agents basically trying to set him up and trap him in a case, right?
Yes.
And what happened in that case?
He's a proud gun owner.
Yeah.
He believes in the Second Amendment, the right to peacefully own and bear firearms in your own home. Which is a constitutional right. Gun collector.
Yeah.
But basically, the ATF, Agent Vias, and still under investigation. We're still in the process of litigating this, so we haven't actually gotten to the point where we've reached the merits of the case.
Right.
But our investigation shows, and the evidence in this case will show, that the lead agent in charge unlawfully sought a search warrant from the judge, from a federal judge,
right,
because he believed that my client was convicted of a domestic violence charge in Missouri,
which
2007.
Which would prevent him from owning guns.
Right.
But he didn't really investigate it, I guess, that well, or he used false information to present it to the judge and got a search warrant, right?
Right.
Okay, then what happened?
He misled the judge,
Yes.
is what it boils down to. He knew for about 6 months prior to seeking a search warrant that my client, Mr. Ston Cipher, had no such conviction in his record, which would prohibit it under federal law from owning a firearm. In fact, my client received what's called a suspended imposition of sentence, or an SIS. Suspended imposition of sentence is, under Missouri law, not considered a conviction. And my client retained letters from his criminal defense attorney at the time. It was basically a small domestic dispute that he had with his wife, his former wife, not the current wife, in May 2010.
Yeah.
And it ended with my client successfully completing his probation,
Right.
paid court costs, and he had a letter from his criminal defense attorney basically saying you don't have a conviction on your record.
Right.
So Agent Vias knew this going in to search, to request a search warrant. He didn't present any of this to the federal judge. He didn't present any of the information that my client was denied a purchase of a firearm at one point in time. Mm-hmm. But then that denial of a purchase of a firearm was overturned. Mm-hmm. He didn't share any of that information with the judge. He didn't share the fact that he knew a suspended imposition of sentence did not equate to a conviction. Right. Based on everything that he read, he reviewed my client's NCIC report, and FBI records, that sort of thing.
So they went to his house?
They went to his house after the undercover investigation. They unlawfully raided the house after pulling him outside,
right,
and actually throwing him to the ground. One of the unknown agents, we still don't know who, because we haven't conducted a lot of discovery in this case, placed his knee in my client's back, exacerbating his war-related back injury.
Mm-hmm. He and his wife were both put in handcuffs, correct?
Yes. My client then protested the fact that he was being unlawfully arrested. The lead agents, Vias and Estrada, did not actually leave, from what we can see, a probable cause statement attached to the search warrant, which is problematic as well under the case law with them. They then proceeded to, after my client pulled out this letter from his criminal defense attorney, he's like, I haven't been convicted of anything. You know,
and he told him there, right there at the scene?
Yes.
Okay.
He was allowed to go back into his sunroom, back into his porch area, and he retrieved this from his file cabinet. So he's reading this, and he's showing a copy of his own criminal record to these agents as they're searching his home, saying, this is an unlawful search. You do not have probable cause. You do not have reasonable suspicion to be in my home. I do not consent to this. Mm-hmm. And they basically ignored it.
You filed a lawsuit on his behalf, I think, in January the following year, January 2011.
That's
what
correct.
happened with that lawsuit?
Right now we're currently proceeding forward to the 10th Circuit of Appeals for the United States 10th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Because it was dismissed, right?
Because it was dismissed by our local district court.
Right.
This is after we received a favorable decision, so we have two conflicting decisions in this case that have to be resolved by the panel court, probably.
Right, so you're waiting for the outcome of that?
Yes.
So you can actually go back and actually litigate this case, correct?
Yes.
All right. Our audience wants to know things like, what are illegal searches and seizures? What are police allowed to do?
Police are allowed to make a search or a seizure if it's supported by two technical terms of art: reasonable suspicion or probable cause.
And this comes under the Fourth Amendment, doesn't it?
Yes, under the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Here in New Mexico, Article 2, Section 10 of our state constitution also prohibits illegal searches and seizures of those without probable cause.
Right. Can police commence a search without a search warrant?
They can. It's what's called a warrantless search,
Yeah.
but they can't do so lawfully. They can, a lot of police officers do believe that they can, in certain circumstances, exigent circumstances, that sort of thing, where they see a crime being committed in their presence,
right?
Cause a warrantless search.
Right now, we have with us your client, Anthony Ston Cipher. We're going to bring him on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Anthony Ston Cipher to the show. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you.
Take us back to that whole mess that happened with the undercover agents. What was, while it was happening, and we know all the details, while it was happening, what was going through your head?
At first, just sheer confusion.
Yeah. Anger?
More fear than anything. I really can't say I know anybody who can say they can look down the barrel of an assault rifle and not be a little scared.
Right.
There was 16 of them.
16?
That's from my memory.
Yeah. The way they were looking at it, you were some big arms dealer, right? And they were taking down a big arms dealer and getting him off the street. Wasn't that the whole concept behind the thing, right? And it didn't matter whether this was the truth or not, did it?
The truth hasn't seemed to matter to them at any point in this.
Now, one of these agents, when they arrested you and brought you outside, how did you end up on the ground?
Well, I turned to kind of face someone that was screaming at me, telling me to...
Screaming at you? What were they saying to you?
At first it was just kind of, like I said, just confusion and inaudible. But then it was, get down on the ground, put your hands up, and I'm just standing there frozen in fear looking down the barrel of all these shotguns and rifles. Yeah. And then I was taken to the ground and handcuffed.
Taken to the ground?
Taken to the ground.
How were you taken to the ground? Pushed to the ground?
I don't know. One minute I'm standing, the next second I'm got my face in the grass, and then they turned their weapons on my wife that was sitting inside and brought her outside and put her in cuffs as well.
And why was it necessary for one of them to step on your back?
I can't think of any reason.
Yeah, but that definitely hurt because you're a veteran and you're injured, aren't you?
Yes, my lower back has 3 discs that are bulged and split due to my service-related injuries. Your
case is on appeal now, and hopefully you'll be allowed the opportunity to actually have a trial. I'm thinking with Derek running the show, most probably that's going to happen. If you had these agents in front of you right now, we're on national TV right now, what do you have to say to them?
I don't know what I would say to them at this point. They came into my home. They knew or should have known that what they were doing was wrong. And they've did it anyway. And it's been almost 4 years and not even a single apology.
Yeah. What advice do you give other people who are faced with a similar circumstance when agents come to their house? What do you tell them to do? What's the safest thing?
Comply.
Yeah.
You've got a firearm at your face, and if you don't comply, you can be shot. And then it's their word against no one's.
Yeah.
If you have the capability, make a recording in any way, shape, or form you can.
Did you do that?
I did have a camera in my home that was recording, but the agents that raided my home ripped that camera off the wall and then dismantled the computer that was recording while it was running.
We hope, and we thank you very much for being on the program, but we hope that you have tremendous success with getting this heard in court, because these people need to be accountable, don't they?
We couldn't agree more, and I am, they say justice delayed, justice denied, and I hope that we achieve a resolution on Anthony's case as soon as possible.
Well, that's why we do these shows, because it's a long road, isn't it? And I'm thinking that you're going to get justice, and I really appreciate you being on the program. Thank you. What is your best advice to someone who is watching the show? The cops show up at their house. They say they have a search warrant. It could be illegal, it could be not valid, but what is your best advice to them, these people that are watching the show, when they're confronted with this situation?
My best advice is if you have a cell phone, it's usually very good to record any of your interactions with the police.
Right.
But beyond that, to vocalize the fact that you do not consent to a search, to vocalize the fact that you do not consent to a seizure of your person or your arrest or whatever is happening to you at the moment. it's very, very important to be vocal. It's very important to speak out and to make a record of the fact that you never consented to it.
Right. You know, cops often try to confiscate that cell phone or that video that you're taking, right?
Yes, they will. In some instances, attempt to confiscate it. But as long as you made it, and as long as you know it exists, even if they've confiscated it, your attorney can then pursue it afterwards.
Before we started the show, we were talking and said you have a lot of people contact you today regarding civil rights violations. How do you select your clients and how do you select your cases?
We have a very unique intake process where we attempt to isolate cases where true injustice has been done, where a person, a regular citizen, has had their rights violated in gross ways. A lot of times it's personal for me. I try to, even here in our office, hire people with disabilities, people who don't necessarily have all the advantages in life. So when I see a case come through where people have a significant disability, it tends to be, you know, on a personal level, a lot more resonant with me in that sense.
To me, you are a true believer. You live and breathe what these rights are all about, and I'm glad that we've had you on our show. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.